Hello, possibility seekers. It's your friend Monique, and I'm back. So, today I wanted to talk about owning our shit. I don't know what's going to happen with that word, whether it's going to be allowed to be in the public domain or it's going to have little asterisks and stars or whatever the case may be. But if you know me, you know that I'm always good for a four-letter bomb or something. But in any event, it's the idea that we take responsibility for our lives, our actions, our outcomes. And this topic came up for me as we had a little snafu here at the firm, and there was a miscommunication and a little bit of, we'll call amplification or a heated moment there. And I realized that we all need to say when things go sideways, we're very quick to blame other people for it. And yet we have the opportunity to own our part of the snafu. So what does that look like? Things go sideways. It's never a one-way street. I don't really care for the conversations that sometimes you hear people like, well, I can't do this because such and such. I won't do this because she did that, or I can't accomplish this, or I can't do this, things are become impossible because of other people. And you know what? Here's the reality. You've heard this a million times. You can't control what happens to you or around you many of the times, but you can certainly control your response to it. So is your response to say, "Oh, it's outside of my control, therefore I'm just going to let the universe or this powers that be or things that are happening around me take control of my life?" Or are you going to take the bull by the horns and say, "Okay, I have something to do with this situation. If there's something going on at work and there was a miscommunication, miscommunications have to have two people in them or more." So owning it takes you, now you're taking your power back. You own it and say, "I'm sorry for my part of the miscommunication. I didn't see this part of your message. I jumped to a conclusion." Or as my son would say, "How many calories did you burn jumping to that conclusion, Mom?" That's always one of my favorites. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Not. But yet, when you have to be called out on your shit, you have to be called out on your stuff. So it's the idea that you want to take ownership. It's a miscommunication, or it's an argument with your spouse. Well, okay. So he raised his voice, then you raised your voice, then he said something derogatory, then you said something derogatory. So does it matter who started or who accelerated it to level 3 and then went to level 4 and then it went to level 5? Each one of you is accelerating it to a different level. So do you cut it off and say, "I don't think you're being your best self with me right now," and stop the conversation so that you don't escalate? That was the word I was looking for, escalate. So the idea is you can take control of a situation or a problem or something that's going haywire by simply de-escalating it. Now, mind you, I'm still working on de-escalation. Sometimes I'm good at it, which surprises me because that's not training that I would have received or seen modeled for me in my household. My household was all about escalation, not de-escalation. The game was you shout louder, and he who shouts loudest wins, or some version of that truth. So that was where I grew up. So for me, the idea of taking control of your response is still something I work on consistently. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not. The other day, I was totally not good at it. And I look back and say, wow, that was not my best self right there. So do I own it? Yes. Do I apologize for it? Yes. Do I take my portion of that problem and own it and say I'm sorry and apologize to the person that you're escalating with? Yes. And then set a standard for the next time it happens, have a game plan. Okay, the next time you raise your voice and blah blah blah, then I'm going to commit to doing blah blah blah. Or the next time that we have a miscommunication, rather than me jump to the conclusion, can you please call me? Don't text me because I get triggered by not knowing or whatever the case may be. I'm a more auditory person than I am a visual person, or I'm more visual than I am auditory. Whatever the case may be, whatever works for you, communicate to the team, to your other person, to whatever, and then own your portion of that conflict, or own your portion of what will be the resolution of that problem. So I think today I wanted to just talk about that and say, we need to own our responses to things. We need to also own the fact that we don't want to have any regrets. And I was at the dinner a few days ago, I met a woman who had written a book as well, and she was talking about regrets. And I said, "Oh, do you know the Bronnie Ware Five Regrets of the Dying?" And one of the regrets of the dying was this idea that you didn't allow yourself to be happy, or you didn't, spend more time with friends, or the idea that you work too hard, or whatever these regrets are. You don't want to have regrets by leaving things with people and relationships untidy, or you make a mess, as I say. If you make a mess, clean it up. I think everyone has a family member or friends that are like, "Oh, we don't talk to, Uncle Joey, because Uncle Joey said something to Aunt Betty, and then Aunt Betty got mad, and the entire family now doesn't speak to that side of the family because we have no idea what the real conflict was, but we know that 20 years later there's some bad blood, and you're still angry about it." Are you joking with me right now? You can't be serious. So to have no relationships with people that would be great to have in your life, simply because you're stuck on not owning your part of the discussion, or being part of a discussion that you had nothing to do with, but you were tangentially involved in. Don't own that. Own your own stuff, not somebody else's stuff. Don't take that on. If you like Aunt Betty, freaking talk to Aunt Betty. Like, this is the whole thing. You have to decide what you want to own, and who you want to be with and who you don't want to be with. I talked about energy vampires. I do that all the time. Just because you're related to somebody doesn't mean you owe them your time, energy, effort, and unending love. I mean, they kind of have to earn it. So if you need to spend time with Aunt Betty and she's an energy vampire, then you spend as little time with Aunt Betty as you need to make the family peace, keep family peace. But you don't have to go to her sister's, cousin's, brother's, baby shower. Be careful about owning your own time, space, voice, and choice. And I think that's what I want the message to be today, is this idea that we have to own our shit, and at the same time, we have to own the positives and the negatives. So if you make a mistake, own it, apologize, set the record straight, hopefully not do it again, and set a new expectation. If somebody else is a disappointment for you, with you, in a situation or an argument, bring that to bear so you get the 800-pound gorilla in the room addressed and clean it up. Look, I really didn't appreciate when you said this in that meeting. If at all possible in the future, should you want to air your concerns or your disappointments, can we do that privately? I would appreciate that. Is that okay with you? Great. Perfect. Let's move on. We kiss it goodbye and we move on on a positive note. I really did not appreciate you yelling or raising your voice. We were both lost. We didn't have directions, whatever the case may be. I apologize for elevating my voice or screaming back to you. In the future, when we're both in a difficult or stressful situation, let's agree to de-escalate one another. Is that good? Can we make that promise to one another? Great. Thank you. Okay, great. We own it. We address it. We don't let it fester, 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 fester. By the way, if you've ever seen the movie French Kiss with Meg Ryan, definitely worthwhile. Very fun. And she uses that expression, fester, fester, fester. So just that's my takeaway for today, this idea of ownership and moving on and creating more harmony, both within yourself and with others. I hope you found this somewhat interesting, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Make it a great day. Bye. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, there's a blog with all of my tips and tricks and takeaways from this episode to read on my website, moniquedemeo.com. And please remember to subscribe and follow us on YouTube or any of your podcast platforms so we can stay in touch. This does absolutely nothing other than to tell you when I drop a new episode. See you soon. Bye bye.